Alexander Lukashenko has ruled Belarus with an iron fist for 26 years. He's often described as Europe's last dictator. But he's now clinging on to power after the largest public protests in Belarusian history. The former Soviet state has a population of 9.5 million and lies on the western border of Russia. The regime there has been shaken by mass demonstrations and strikes following a presidential election on August the 9th. Lukashenko claimed to have won with 80% of the vote, despite the evident mass support for opposition candidate Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the 37-year-old former housewife and wife of a candidate who was barred by Lukashenko, fled to Lithuania, where she is calling for the support of European leaders.
I call on you not to recognize these fraudulent elections. Mr. Lukashenko has lost all the legitimacy in the eyes of our nation and the world.
After Belarusians took to the streets in protest, the president ordered a crackdown. Thousands of people were arrested and many savagely beaten by the police. But the demonstrations gathered strength. Workers went on strike in Belarus's state-owned companies, former bastions of support for Lukashenko, and even at the state broadcaster, once a mouthpiece for the regime. Lukashenko, a former collective farm manager, was first elected in 1994. He was credited with stabilizing the new nation after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But he tightened his grip, eliminated all opposition, and rigged subsequent elections. Belarusians became increasingly dissatisfied with their economic stagnation, corruption, and sometimes eccentric behavior of their autocratic leader. Its GDP has lagged behind neighbors like Poland, and Lukashenko's refusal to take the coronavirus pandemic seriously was for many the last straw. Belarus is now experiencing a remarkable democratic awakening. Lukashenko has lost all legitimacy, opposition leaders say, but he is digging in and his security forces remain loyal. His fate probably now rests in the hands of Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader. Belarus has close ties with Moscow. It is part of a Russian-led free trade zone and signed a union treaty with Russia in 1999. But Lukashenko has dragged his feet on closer integration. He has often played Russia off against the West, toying with warmer relations with Europe and the US in order to extract more concessions from the Kremlin. Minsk has been propped up by cheap Russian fuel supplies, which Belarusian companies sell on at market prices. But Putin is tired of Lukashenko's antics and has scaled back Russian subsidies. Lukashenko accused Russia of meddling before this month's vote. Now he says the opposition is a Western plot to weaken ties with Moscow. In fact, there is no sign of anti-Russian feeling among the protesters in Belarus. And opposition leaders have tried to give assurances to Moscow that they do not intend to realign Belarus with the West. If Putin intervenes to prop up the Belarusian dictator, he risks an anti-Russian backlash. European leaders hope to persuade the Kremlin to back a transition and fresh elections. But Putin will want a candidate for the Belarusian presidency he is comfortable with, and it is unclear who that might be. The danger is that a desperate Lukashenko tries to crush the opposition in a brutal crackdown. Belarus's revolution may have a long way to go, but the country has been transformed in only a few weeks.